Hi, I'm Linda Summers.
And I'm Jeannie Lemaire.
And this is Emerging Self, Bringing Heaven to Earth. And today's topic, we are talking about speaking your truth. Last week we talked about blocking and getting out of your own way. Wow.
To speaking your own truth.
Yeah. To speaking your own truth. So, well, well, first of all, I want to say that I'm grateful that we've got all the rain. Like, we're in a flood, but we got a lot of rain. So as we talked last week, it was about, cleansing, flooding, and all that stuff. So I'm just glad to see the rain come and we're out of this drought. So it would be great if we could conserve the flooding, the water, if they could take a pipe and they could drain it to all the farmers so it can...
Exactly.
So that extra water can do something. I don't know, that's what I think, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's so hard when you don't know when you're going to get water and then how much you're going to get, where to put the pipes.
Absolutely,
That's the problem.
Who knows? And I always want to thank, the listeners and the viewers watching today. Thank you for tuning in. Mm-hmm. Yay.
And when we start with a lot of gratitude because we're very grateful. So I just, off the bat, again want to say, I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful that you're you and that, just you're about something that's very important to me as well. I'm grateful to be a part of this with you, and I'm grateful that we can get into it. I like that. I like the fact that we can take these topics and, come at it from different angles and give people, give all of you a variety of things to think on and see what strikes you.
Yeah,
I like
absolutely,
that.
yeah. Well, and I want to say this whole thing on speaking your truth, what comes up for me, because it really is about speaking our truth. It always really has been, but, we've talked and we'll talk more about today's show about not being trained in it. But I feel this is the mess, why we got into the mess that we're in. We're in dishonesty, deceit. I mean, even those greed, even those situations I was going through, it's like, how much of the dishonesty with not just, certain aspects of these situations, but we're talking all of it,
Yeah. Well, you're talking a relationship with a person that's come to an end. So a lot of us have that. And, it's just amazing when you look back of the things that could have maybe gone a different way if somebody was speaking their truth.
Right.
Really, really telling their truth, like you said, not just this little segment.
Right.
I think we've kind of moved up to that. Oh yeah, I'm telling my truth. I'm telling this little segment.
Right.
Well, I don't know. How's that working?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's even, with the lawyers and stuff like that. I mean, with any, it doesn't even matter. I'm just saying that because that was the situation I was going in, or going through. But I just feel that when there is dishonesty and there's deceit, and especially in the world, that we got ourselves into this, and it's like, how are we going to get ourselves out? It's about speaking up and speaking our truth. Well, that's not an easy task.
No, and that doesn't always get you where you want to go. That's what you would think. Okay, I'm ready now. I'm ready. I'm confident. I'm feeling good enough about myself. So, okay, I'm going to speak my truth. Well, gosh, maybe you're a little emotional that day just because of something that happened with your child, and you go to speak your truth with somebody, and they're like, I don't want to hear it, and all that emotionality kind of comes up. Oops, so sorry. So it's like, I wish there were a thing where you could say, I'm ready, so therefore the planet better be ready. But it doesn't work that way.
No,
I wish it were.
I don't think we're even ready for it.
No, but we think we are.
Yeah.
We're trying.
I mean, this is, why we're doing this show, is to really raise the consciousness and have these topics so we can really, bring this to awareness. And I think the whole thing, too, around speaking your truth is that we're afraid that we're going to hurt other people's feelings. I mean, that's just not the only thing. That's just one of the things. I think it's about being afraid that if I speak my truth, I'm going to hurt the other person's feelings. And then what happens is we rob ourselves and we undercut ourselves, because then I know for myself, when I have spoken my truth, how it was received may not have been, or it may be misunderstood or ignored. But, so when you do speak your truth and all of a sudden it's being used against you, then you're going to be apt to not really speak your truth.
And it's so true. That's a strong point, Linda, because it goes back to, you were talking the other day on a show about communication.
Yeah.
So I often think, speak my truth is, here's my 5 words, I'm going to go now.
Yeah.
That if you're going to be up to speaking your truth, if you're really up to wanting to be gotten, heard, included, or pondered over, it takes a little bit of engaging. But as you said, you have no idea if that other person is going to say, oh, great, or are they going to say, I don't want to hear it, or don't tell me that, or you don't work here anymore, or who knows what. So
Right.
there's all that nuances stuff
Right.
that enters in, at least for me. So
Yeah, and I think too, when I've noticed that in speaking my truth, because really I've been doing this more so for the last 6 months. I mean, I really did in my marriage, I hardly ever spoke up, and when I did, it got used against me. So then I thought, okay, maybe I'll write, well, then that was either ignored or misunderstood, so what I did was I just decided that I wasn't going to speak up and I was going to shut down. But then what I found out, so then what was happening, that I would be blaming everybody else for what was happening to me. So,
because those situations were like kind of reminders to you that you weren't speaking. I mean, like you said, people were doing things and you wanted to tell them something, but they didn't know it, because you weren't at that time speaking.
Yeah, I wasn't able to speak up and speak my truth. But I know too that when, for me, I think that in speaking your truth, when we talked about last week about, communication and blocking ourselves and things like that, that it does begin with communication. But I think that if they know they're in a bad mood, so if he was in a bad mood, right? For him to communicate, and I would say, I really want to talk to him. I mean, what's that thing that people say, okay, we got to talk. And
Right.
they automatically go, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong, So it'd be like, there's got to be another 3 words you can say or some other words.
Yeah.
Steve Harvey had something down, but, saying, okay, we need, there's something I want to share with you or I want to talk about, and he's, well, have had a bad day and things like that. Well, they're not going to speak their truth then.
Yeah.
Right?
Or hear you very
they're
well.
not going to hear you.
I mean, there you go, yeah.
They're not going to hear you. So if I'm speaking my truth, I don't think it's really going to matter what's going to say because they're not going to be able to receive it. So I feel that if we're going to speak our truth, then it's knowing where that other person's at. And then it's also knowing and how we are coming, where we're coming from in our own truth, if we're coming from our heart. But I think, too, when you said something earlier, when we are saying something, how that person's going to receive it, it's like we could stir them up. So then they're getting stirred up and their stuff is coming up. So Brent, my one son, told me, he goes, it's not my responsibility how the other person receives it, which is true. But at the same time, I want to say, how are we communicating that?
And it's a difference. You always talk in intention, and it's true.
Yeah.
Am I intending for both of us to get some kind of clarity, or am I just interested this minute to get out what I need to say? And, it can vary. Sometimes you
Right.
just forget it, not even we're not in charge, but still, sometimes I've just got to say it, that goes where it does. And other times we want to say it, but we're really interested in them hearing it.
Yeah.
What'd you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to figure out what scenario are you in, or what do you
Right.
want to, what would you like to see happen? Not that it's going to happen, but
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really kind of, you can get a feel for the person's physiology, how they're,
yeah.
what's going on, how their day was.
Their look.
So their look, yeah. So I think there's ways that we could probably be able to figure out, but I really do think that I know for myself that just in these last 6 months and really speaking up and saying, this is what's true for me. And, this whole thing, and I think I feel like I've always been about truth.
Yeah.
And getting clarity on things and like that. So, but I've never said anything about it. So it was more of kind of shutting down because what's the point, I know if there's people out there, I'm sure, that have said their truth, right? And they've gotten in trouble for it. So, I mean, it's really, you got to step lightly, but at the same time, I would say it's like we can't undercut ourselves. We can't rob ourselves of that really knowing what's right for us, and doing just the opposite.
Yeah, and to go on that topic is that sometimes too I've discovered, I go to speak my truth. Well, maybe that minute the person, first of all, they didn't know what was coming or what was coming, so it takes them a minute to sort through that, and then maybe it's 3 days later that we really have the conversation that I wanted to have. Because, like you said, if you say to a spouse, "We got to talk," that immediately is something's wrong, something's bad. It doesn't need to be, but that's kind of where it tends to head. At least that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, like I said, these words have extra connotations. When, in truth, I think all of us are just wanting to be valuable enough to hear our presentation, and if it's possible with that other person, for them to hear and insert where they were coming from that maybe we didn't see and they
Right.
didn't see, and push come to shove, and then give each other a hug and all is well. But we know it doesn't always go that way, and I think this topic too goes back to all that fear and lack
Oh,
business.
absolutely.
Don't you think so? Because if I'm afraid,
Absolutely.
I'm afraid somebody's going to come after me, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm particularly not going to speak my truth.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because if you've spoken your truth before, and it's like, well, then what's the point of speaking my truth if it's going to be used against me?
Yeah.
What's the point?
And as you're saying, we're bright. Okay, nobody's not bright. I don't care how many
Right.
classes you've gone to or how many degrees. We all get what's safe and what's not in this arena.
Yeah, and I think too is that if we're, you could say your husband or your friend or whatever, if you're going to have a conversation, like you were saying, they may not even know, they may not be prepared for it, so they
Yeah.
might react. But I think again, this goes back to communication. It's like, let's talk about the situation that happened. It really was, there's a lot of energy around it. It was really bothering me, and I'd like to talk about it. That way, at least it gives the other person an opportunity to be able to go, okay, this is what's up for them. So then I think from that space, then it's how they receive it. If they're going to receive it as defense or they're going to get a rise from it, I feel then that's really, it's stirring things up in them, that
Yeah.
they're needing to get something out. Because we've been talking on the show, all the shows really, it's about getting all this energy up and out.
Yeah. And it also enters into that, we were talking before, of not being in control does not mean don't be in charge. So,
Right.
so yeah, if it's a topic I've got, say I have a topic with you, and I know I have the topic, you may not know we have the
Right.
topic, so you're on the more receiving end. Oh, there's a topic, and of course we all think, oh, where, when, which, what, all those thoughts go through our heads. So when you're the deliverer of speaking your truth, it is kind of nice to have a little compassion for the person who didn't realize that this might be a moment that something would come up for them.
Right.
You see, because like you said, they weren't thinking on this particular topic, and so now that you mention it,
Right.
and then whammo, they got more news on it. So
Right.
it really is a big risk, don't you think, Linda?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big risk to
I think
me.
it's a huge risk. But I think then
is.
again too,
Worthy
right,
risk.
if we're delivering it, then it's to let that person know. Again, I'm going to say it again, it's about communication, that we have to let the other person know, hey, this is what's up for us. This has been on my mind and it's really been bothering me and I really want to talk about it. I remember with my kids and, teaching them, that was one of the things I taught them was tell the truth. You have to tell the truth. That's one thing I will not allow, stealing or lying. Those are the two things I will not allow in this household. But what I realized was, raising them, I was not conscious myself. So of course they would go to tell me the truth, right? Then they would get in trouble. So
Oh,
then
boy.
they figured, okay, well, here I am telling my truth, but I'm getting in trouble. So they, it was a mixed message to them. And
There
then when
you
I
go.
started doing this work, I realized, okay, wait a minute. If I'm telling the truth and I'm going to get in trouble, then I'm not going to tell the truth, right?
Makes sense to me.
Absolutely. So I had to change my tactics with them and let them know, listen, this is where I was. This is, giving you the opportunity to speak the truth and say, and not only that, what's right and what's wrong, we know that. And so letting them know that if you are speaking your truth, the consequence, if you want to say that, will not be any, or it's going to be very minimal, as if I find out if you lied.
There you
So
go.
it's
Yeah.
really
There you
letting
go.
them know ahead of time that this is what's going to happen. But it was only until I became conscious. So all you parents out there, I would really say to you is that when your children, when you're wanting the truth, that to allow them to be able to speak the truth, but let them know that, if you're going to lie, the consequence is going to be a heck of a lot worse than if you tell me the truth, or there may be no consequence at all. Because it's about building trust. It's just what we talked about last week. You have to build trust. So that, in order to do that, you have to at least give them the opportunity. Absolutely.
Okay. So,
Why do we speak our truth? Oh, why don't we? Or why do we not speak our truth naturally? Sorry, I don't have my glasses on and I was a little bit on the not side. Why do we not speak our truth naturally? Well, we weren't trained. So, and if we were trained, again, we weren't trained, but if we were, and you spoke your truth, and you got in trouble, you're going to learn not to speak your truth. You're going to just shut down. You're going to do whatever you can do. So how you can learn, why don't we do that naturally? Well, because we weren't taught. And it's almost like, again, I would say going back to your motivation, your intention. What are you trying to gain from something? What are you trying to do? So if you know what your intentions are, then you're more apt to know which direction you want to go in. So I don't know if that's clarifying that or not, but
Makes sense to me.
yeah. And again, naturally, I mean, it's really a given that we're always supposed to tell the truth. The truth sets you free. But, again, we're either protecting ourselves, we're protecting the other person. So I think it just goes back to what your motivation, your intention is what are you trying to protect yourself or the other person? Because I'll tell you, it'd be like I wore those shoes last week and I was like uncomfortable when I was telling you about those
Yes.
shoes because I hadn't worn ankle boots without pants before. I would much rather you say, it really doesn't look good without pants or, than
If that was my truth.
If that was your truth, then just go, oh, no, they look fine. And all the time where we're sitting here at the show, you're like, gosh, I wish those shoes she wouldn't wear those shoes, So that's what I'm saying. It's like in those moments, I would much rather have the truth. And it may hurt, but again, like we talked last week, the same thing, criticism. I don't look at it as criticism. I look at it as growth and improvement and how I can look at things differently. Because if I'm all about growth and, being in conscious awareness, then that's, then I'm going to look at it different. I'm going to perceive it differently.
Yeah, and on the other side of that same coin is if, using your shoes as an example, if, say, I'm saying it looks great, but really it just isn't suiting you and you're not
Right.
feeling happy about it, you maybe think I'm lying.
Yeah.
Because it's not comfortable to you, so how could it be comfortable to me? So, I know that we're always from inside of ourselves perceiving out, but even so, we have to sometimes imagine, is this topic as significant to them as it is to us?
Yeah.
And some of them are and some aren't. So part of that nuance to me on the natural, as you say, we're not trained, and nobody has. We'd really have to have one generation. To get back, we'd have to have one generation that had no kids. So no kids.
Yeah.
We just dropped it out, and then what do you call it? Refresh on your computer. Refreshed ourselves and said, okay, yes, we're going to tell the truth, and we want to know the truth. But I'm joking. So I don't think that it's intended not to speak our truth. I think that due to our training with family and our religions and our teachers and our experts and our authority figures, we have nuances delivered to us. And so, as you say with your kids, they say tell the truth and you tell the truth and you get in trouble. Well, so much for that nuance. We
Right.
just forget that one. So we're all getting back to ourselves. When you say it's kind of getting back to that we're worthy to be heard. We're worthy to say what we say, even if we don't say it too well. Because I can just tell you that's my thing. Talk about getting your own way. I tend to be a little more abrupt and a little more intense, which right off the bat puts people on the defense. It would me too if it was coming my way. So not realizing, you keep saying, and I'm listening, show a little more heart if you can. If you can just say, hey, this is what's going on with me about this. I'm just saying, I don't know what's going on with you, but for me, this is not working, whatever.
Yeah.
It is a little easier to chew on. That's why I call it, you're going to chew on this stuff for me. So.
Well, and I think too that if people are communicating, it is coming from the heart, like we talked about last week as well, that it really is speaking from the heart. And whenever we speak from the heart, there's a sincerity, there's a genuine, that you can feel that they are sincere as opposed to, speaking their truth. And really, again, I would say, what really is speaking your truth to you? Because what it means to you may not be what it means to me.
Exactly.
So really we have to look at, somebody speaking their truth could mean, well, that's not really all the truth. It's partial lie. It's, whatever. Again, I think anything that we look at, it's like, what is it true for us? How is it in our world that relates to the outer world?
Yeah, but you're putting the real capper on it all. Is that we're in charge of this space. We're not in charge of that space or some other space over here. We're in charge of this one. So if we're not putting it together with our standards, with how things look to us, if we're not looking okay to ourselves, I think that's when this speaking your truth gets muddled over here, thinking you have to agree with me or you have to like it the way I like it for it to be okay. That's, I think, where some of the muddle gets. It's because I'm not settled here. I'm not fully happy with how I'm going about my life. And as you say, it isn't just the words; it's tone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tone can really, get us to button it up.
Right. Right, or shut down.
That's what I'm saying, just not say a word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so then we harbor all that energy within inside of us, and now we've talked on other shows as well, that if that energy is still there and there's something that you keep thinking on, that it's in your consciousness and you can't get over it, then you know something has to be spoken out about it.
Yeah.
And the more that we can learn, I feel the more that we can learn to do that, that the more we'll be at ease as be able to tell people that, this is where I'm coming from. And it doesn't have to, it's making a mountain out of a molehill, they say, So it's not really building on that, but it really is coming from that place of, hey, this is bothering me and this is what, where I'm coming from. It's like, it reminds me of going out with my friends and stuff like that. And, I stopped doing that because it wasn't really kind of feeling well in some respect, not all of them, but certain places, And so I thought, well, I can go out and do it and just to do it, right? And not really, feel like I'm in my truth, right? Or I cannot do it and be in my truth and say, you know what, that just doesn't feel right for me anymore. It was then, it served a purpose then, but I'm not from that place anymore. So
Which changes friendships sometimes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. But again, to me, the number one thing in any kind of relationship, whatever it is in this world, it has to be about communication. I think that we would be out of wars, we would be out of poverty, we would be out of hunger if everyone would communicate in a way, and it's not and not go, okay, well, I want this much because I'm going to be greedy. So, it really goes back, I think, to what's our intention, what's our motivation? Are we trying to be greedy? Are we trying to, want more than, than we really need?
Yeah, and I think it's also helpful if you have a chance to even to practice it. So in my work, I'll have people imagine, whoever they're distressed with, kind of on a beach, and talk to that person, in their imagination, eyes are closed, because the fun thing on that is if you're just seeing that person on the beach, your boss, your husband, your wife, your somebody, and you have the freedom that all they get to do is nod their head that they hear it, well, sometimes that just lets you go, well, and another thing, and this, and that, and things that don't even relate to what you're talking about, because you're in a created environment where it's absolutely safe. And I've had several people get back to me saying, thanks for that exercise, thanks for that option, because when I went to actually talk to my son or talk to my, teacher or whatever, I found I actually was able to communicate what I wanted to communicate, not all the extra this and that, but several of them have laughed. I was just amazed how I had all this, which when I was finished doing it, they said, didn't even relate to that person. It's like that person, they had this thing, but boy, it opened this can of worms, but they were able to talk out loud, they were able to, gesture and do all of these things that when it finally came time to talking to the person that they wanted to have the communication with, it seemed to them that it went easier.
Yeah. Same thing in coaching, what coaching with people, it's the same thing. It's what I'm going for is the truth. What is true for you? To empower you in your truth, to speak what's true for you, because other people are going to say, like we have been talking about, well, this is what you should do, this is what you need to do, this is whatever, and really it's and I ask them, so what's your truth? And this could go with your morals and your values and all of that. It's like, what is true for you? I remember when my kids also growing up, I sat them down and I said, what are your values? What do you value? There's a lot of things that your father and I have given you that, that were our values. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be your values.
There you go.
So see if it works for you, And so what they did is like, okay, well, we're going to throw that one out because that doesn't work for me. And we're going to keep, so they were able, I was able to give them an opportunity to be able to come up with what works for them and what was their truth. And if there was something that, as parents, that they loved and it's working for them, hey, so that's what I would say, hey, if it serves you and it's good for you and it works for you, then by all means keep it.
And I can think of an ex-husband of mine that growing up, he had a sister, an older sister, and he wanted to have his own baby carriage and doll in it. Well, he was a guy, and this is years ago when little boys got trucks and little girls got the baby doll. But his mother was very good, and he at one time, I don't know if he was 6 or 8 or something like that, but he'd go down the street with his baby car with his baby in it and stuff. He's kind of following his sister a little bit and stuff. a great guy. It didn't make him any less of a guy in any way, shape, or form, but he just had that chance or have that experience. And I'm just thinking, well, how many men would have that chance to have the feeling of mothering because they're a father, you know? So I thought, how brilliant. Now, who knows what the motivation was, but when he told me the story, I thought, that's exactly what you're talking about, is that chance to engage in it. You know, he only did it for a couple weeks. He was on to other topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she, you know, really honored that.
Yeah. You know, and something else just came up for me too when you were speaking is that, you know, I remember in relationship as well, being married, I would speak my truth and say, this is what's important to me. Like, I don't know, let's just say taking out the trash. I mean, that wasn't, but just for sake of conversation, taking out the trash. You know, that's really important to me that gets done, you know, in timely manner. And he'd be like, well, that's not important to me. So I think we forget, just because it's not important to you doesn't mean it's not important to the other person. So it's really honoring that, yeah, it may not be important to you, but this is where we're in a relationship. So it's honoring the other person. Oh, wow, she really likes that I take out the trash, you know. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I think it really is, and I feel that, you know, I remember going, you know, thinking back all the things that I would say that, you know, that I would come up from my truth, and he'd be like, well, that's not important. What's the big deal? You know, but I'm like, it is a big deal to me. It's important to me.
And as you're just saying, he's very well clearly said it's not important to him. So I say, if it's not important to you, why does it matter that you do it? It won't matter if you do it or don't do it. So if someone has a topic, we're going to use the trash, and you say, yes, it matters to you, and I say, it doesn't matter to me. If it really doesn't matter, then I'll take out the trash. Now, if you say, I want you to take out the trash, and you know, I am really against taking out the trash. That's the one thing, I mean, you know, I'll do something else, but I won't take the trash out. Then you can say, oh, we got a little bit of an impasse here. I'd like you to take out the trash, and it's against your, I say, against your religion or against your standards. And then, well, okay, then maybe we have to hire somebody to take out the trash. Or, you know, then maybe we have to do it different. But what you're saying is if something is important to one person and the other indicates it's no big deal, so what's the big deal to do it?
And again, it goes back into tone. It depends. So if your tone is one of, you know, high energy or whatever it is, then that person, so then you kind of have a feeling, okay, well, they don't really care, you know. So again, it goes back to, why would I speak up my truth if it's only going to be used against me?
There you go.
You know. So
and we're good, aren't we? So, you know, I just want to say to all you folks out there that, you know, I have a lot of people around me right now having babies. You know, some of them are grandbabies of friends of mine, or their daughters or great-grandbabies. But a lot of them are coming around, and it just reminds me, as I'm hearing the stories, Linda, too, of the things that come up for babies, which we know they're doing their best to speak their truth, you know? So we have
they
one,
can't talk.
it's one baby, you know, that had to stay at the hospital longer until it was finally figured out that it wasn't getting enough nourishment for what it wanted versus the amount of milk produced. Well, and then another, you know, fine at the hospital, then get home and all of a sudden has trouble with what we would call like an acid reflux. You think, where's that coming from? And I'm thinking, here's all these distinctions in parents, whether you're a new parent or it's your third child, you still have to go, okay, what is this child trying to say to me? And I'm thinking, if we could just keep that freshness, like, you know, we're brand new people every day, so we could keep that freshness, that just like we were brand new babies and someone tells us that and we can look at it as a brand new possibility, that'd be kind of fun. You know, I'm not sure if we can or not, but I've just been around enough of the babies to say they're doing their best between movement and sound and things. And I don't think even kids in general are about not telling the truth, as you say. If people say tell the truth and then you find it's used against you, well, takes care of that.
Well, and I'll have to say that I know kids speak their truth, especially when they're really little. I remember my one son, I had a pair of shorts on, and I don't know which one it was, but I had a pair of shorts on. He's like, what's those lines on the back of your legs? And I was like, oh, heavens. Oh, my gosh. The kids say the darndest things the darndest times. You know, it's like, you got to love them because it's like, wow, they just know what to say, when to say it, and they don't care. So when they are little, there is no nuance or discernment of, oh my gosh, should I say this or not, or should I say it, you know? I mean, they'll just say some of the things they would say, we'd be in the grocery store, some of the things they would say, I'd be like, oops, I'm so sorry. You know, kids, they just kind of say you know, they just say the truth, you know? And so you're right. I think it brings a freshness. It brings wonderful feeling. And if we can look into our world and really in relationships and be able to do that, I think it would really change the way we see things. And again, I think it's all about choice and perception, choosing how you perceive it. We have another question. Okay. Yeah. How do we know when to go direct to someone about a concern? Well, how do we know when to go to direct? Well, again, it's like we were just been talking about. Hey, if you know they come home and they're like, oh my gosh, I've had the worst day, my boss did this, that is not the time you want to talk to them. You're like, oh, and you want to listen to them. This is where you want to come in and really, genuinely, because we're talking about relating. Don't fake it. Don't, just go, yeah, let them get it all out. No, really be there for them in every way, shape, and form you can, and really listen to what they have to say. And I'll tell you, when you do that, it changes the dynamics. So being able to know when the space, like talking to my dad when I was little, I knew when the moment was to talk to my dad. There was a moment that, you just kind of know. So I would say, again, it's really about seeing where they're at and knowing if this is the time to be able to communicate with them and speak your truth. And if it's not, then I would wait until there is that moment. And then again, I would say, in a way that works for you, in the language of, and again, coming from your heart, saying, the other day when you had said something, I really want to share how I feel about this. I was hurt, and it's really about how you felt about it, not what you did, and you should have done this, and you should have done that. But, and I'm not perfect. I don't think anybody's perfect, and we do get kind of sidetracked but really come from a place of how you feel about it. And let that person know, because then they're apt to really come in a different place, in a different space, and be able to accept it differently. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. And direct, direct. We all have a different idea what direct means. Direct to some is just like whomp. Direct to some others, leaving a note on somebody's desk. I mean,
writing letters.
So the notion of direct is, again, just as Linda's saying, is in a format that works for you, because we're not only not the same person, we're not the same intensity, we're not the same nuances of how we go about things. Some folks really would rather kind of skirt around it and sort of kind of get into the topic, and that's direct enough. And others are slice it down the center and just part the Red Seas and let the chips fall where they may. Well, that's the part of the stuff that I see that we're learning to know ourselves. All these topics are about bringing things up so we can know ourselves better. So a time to go direct, maybe you need to practice it with a friend a few times. Have the friend be whoever you're speaking to, and let them be, Mark or Joan or whatever, and kind of tell it that way. Give you a chance to see how it sounds when it comes out of your mouth, I'm a great one for practice and exercises because, again, I can think a whole bunch of things, and in my mind, it's, I don't know about you, but it sits so perfectly. And then it comes out of my mouth, and I realize the perfection is long gone. So, there are things that you can do to like boost your confidence in, but a situation, I'd say if it's your relationship, if it's a job, if it's things that you're, actively engaged in and important to you, and especially if it's a job you love, you want to be able to feel comfortable enough to go to work. You want to feel heard and a part of. So, that's the part I'm hearing Linda say that we have to do, but we can practice a little, and we can ask for help, and we can, move up to it, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it goes back to really fear. When we talked about fear, and the fact is, it's like, okay, I want to go and tell my boss. I really want to ask for a raise, but I'm not sure how to do it. And what if it goes into, we put the scenario already ahead of what's going to happen before we even know. And it's a difficult thing. It really is. It's like, but again, I feel that if we really, if we have a script in our head of, okay, this is how I'm going to say it, and this is what's going to happen, it's not going to work. It just isn't going to work, like you said.
Exactly.
Then it's going to come out completely different, as opposed to, how we do the show. We don't have a script.
Nope.
It comes, like there's nothing around.
No, I don't have a page under the...
Yeah, it comes really, we're a source, and it comes through us in every moment what's going to happen. We never know what's going to say. We could have something planned out, but lo and behold, it goes another direction. So, I think, again, if we're going to be speaking our truth, it's knowing, how that person, where they're at, and what the space that they're in, but also coming from our heart and really coming from that place of really sincerely saying, this is how I feel. It's really been bothering me or whatever, or, I want to raise and I really feel like I love what I'm doing and I love this place and, I feel like I've really gone above and beyond and I would like to be rewarded for that, And so, and if you're saying it in that way, I really feel that they are going to come around, because how could you not? It's not like you're going in there, I deserve to have this much because I've worked so hard and I've done this and I've done that. And, and are we at the best of it? No, and like Jeannie's saying, it really does take practice. Practice makes perfect. When kids are going out to play baseball, some, God love them, may be a baseball player natural born, but they still have to go out every day and they have to have practices on and, over and over, the same thing. So it's, like we talked about in habit energy, 21 days or more. You build or break a habit. So it's a continuous practicing. And, and I was going to say really quick, I know that in the last 6 months, really speaking my truth, I'm telling you that the freedom that I feel, the confidence, the empowerment, just what working with people and saying, this is what it is, bringing that truth, and you do feel empowering. And it's not an empowering in a way that you feel all macho or whatever you want to call that. It's really empowering in a way that you're coming from your perspective, your standards, what's right for you.
And backing yourself.
And backing yourself and not undercutting yourself. So,
But you said an important point earlier on this same topic, which is, say it's a spousal situation and they come home and they're in a bad mood. When you say you're genuinely there for them, you've got a better chance for them not only to clear out whatever upset they have from the day, but you have a chance for them to hear what you have to say better.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
So sometimes you may be, I want to be first, I've got something to say, but the truth is, you sometimes have to let the other person go first.
Right.
And then you can kind of get more
right.
of, like you said, that can happen in the moment.
Yeah.
Right?
And it may not be where it gets talked about what you want to share in that moment anyway. And that's why I think the whole being genuine and really, because again, we've talked about it, being heard and listening. Listening is, I think, is an important aspect, because the fact is we don't listen because we're ready for the next thing we're going to say, and what we're going to say is more important, and yada, yada, and it just goes on. And so we want people to hear us. We want people to listen, because we can tell if they're listening, because of how they respond and what they say, as opposed to, yeah, that sounds really great. Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Like, did they really even hear me?
I know. I did that to a friend the other day on the phone. I mean, honestly, I was right with him until I dropped something. So I just for half a minute, reached down to get something. In that minute, the important news went past that was supposed to have a response of, oh, that's horrible. I said, oh, that's great. Now, so as we were saying, and she's like, Jeannie, did you hear me? And I said, I think I missed a minute. Was it an important minute? And they go, yeah, it was a real important minute.
Yeah, it was probably the meat of it.
Exactly. It's like the whole point of the conversation is like, well, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I was with you, thought I heard, and didn't even think I was away from hearing you. Yeah. Obviously, I was. So.
Yeah. And I feel, too, what comes up for me as well, and I really think that this is, when I spoke about in the beginning about this, why a world we live in is such a mess because of the deceit and dishonesty, is that to allow, and I've always felt that wars, whether it's in a relationship, business, the world, doesn't matter, is because of opinions. Because everyone, it's like, I've got to be right. My opinion is more than your opinion. You need to shift your perspective to my perspective. And what I want to say is that's not the truth. The truth is that we each have our own opinion. It's not one is better than the other, not one is greater than the other. And it's to allow us, like, wow, like, that's your opinion. And I can honor that. And I'm thinking, wow, I really like that. Let me let this kind of simmer. And the next thing I know, I'm shifting my perspective to your opinion because there was something about it that resonated with me. Or it may be where your opinion, I was like, nah, that's great, but that's your opinion. And hey, more power to you. And this is how I feel. But I think that's where wars begin in relationships and in the world, is because everybody's trying to say, I want it my way. And this goes back to our I was going to say class, and I don't know where that came from.
What class?
Yeah.
Human class.
No,
we're
class. In the universal class. It's like, this is the university. We're in a universe class.
Class. Yeah.
What
class?
Gosh, I'm just studying for words. But our topic last week, so really, it's just really learning to really listen in a way that we haven't listened before, and really honoring each other's opinions. I think we would really make a difference in the world. Here we go. Thank you for the questions, by the way.
Really,
love
we
them.
appreciate it. Good. And
Yay.
thank you for having enough interest to give them.
Yes.
How do we get over being good boys and girls and still be nice people? So we're talking about speaking up, and that's that difference between pleasing myself and
we want to be
pleasing
pleasers.
others. We're trained, if you, at least in my lifetime, I don't know about Linda's, but if you didn't have something nice to say, you weren't supposed to say anything at all. Well, sometimes my communications didn't have something nice. Maybe I didn't have it all settled out. Maybe I wasn't coming from my heart, but it was up, and I needed to sort it through and needed for it to come up, and basically told, well, that wasn't very nice. So, you're a bad person for even bringing that up. Now, where does that then fit in, to speaking our truth? So I'm going to say on that question for me that the pleasing of the self is to be able to live in your body as yourself. This is your world. This is the one you're always with. So the more we're happy here, the more we're going to be happy out here and everywhere else. So that's the part of the speaking the truth. But on being a good person, I think a really good person is going to want to be able to take a difficult topic because they're your good friend, because they're your husband, your wife, your a mentor, to let them know that you care enough to get this news sorted through. And a word that comes up for me on all this is compromise. And I hear people say compromise. So you have to compromise, and that sort of means something like so don't be yourself,
right? Undercut.
And I don't think so. What I'm saying to compromise is, just as Linda pointed out, say your truth of how something is or isn't settling for you, and be able to say, now, this is what's going on with me for that. Is anything going on with you? Now, the person could say, no, nothing going on. I hear you, great, fine. Or, now that you mention it, now that you bring this up, I realize that I've been not being a nice person. I didn't want to say, but, when you wear those shoes with that one dress, the one you wore yesterday, I just have to tell you, they don't go together. I'm no fashion expert, but I know you want to look good, but I just don't think the plaids go with the stripes. I mean, it just didn't work for me. That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I would say that would be helpful, but it still would be, trying to keep our niceness, because we're nice people.
Yes.
Most people on the planet are nice people. We're all nice people. Some of us are just at a tilt, is my point of view.
Yeah, we're just unconscious, a little sleep.
That's right. And feeling put upon, and we got our dukes up. You know?
Absolutely.
But just think of it. If people communicated more, like you said, told the truth, well then, and you'll be able to honor those truths, then what are we worrying over?
Right.
And on top of it, who wants to own more of somebody else's property? What is that?
Right.
As though something out here can replace here.
Right, and I think that goes back to intention and motivation. Yeah. So how I would answer that question is pleasing, the little boys and little girls. Again, to me, it's about pleasing yourself. I don't think it's determining there's a gender, about pleasing. It's, if you, again, I think this goes back to really in honoring yourself and knowing yourself. How are you being in the world? What are you doing? What's your motivation? What's your intention? Again, like Jeannie was saying, we were taught not to, if you don't have a good thing to say, then don't say it at all. Well, listen, I mean, everybody's taught different ways and different things, but I don't know, to the whole pleasing of little girls and boys, everybody's going to be taught differently, and I don't know. For me, I just think it's about you. You know if you're a good person. You know when you're doing good. You know when you're trying to please others versus and undercutting yourself. And when you know that in that moment that you're trying, because let me tell you, I'm a pleaser. I was. I'm not going to say I am now. I was. And it was trying to please everybody else, make sure that everybody else got their needs met before mine. And then what happened to Linda? Then I was all upset because I didn't get my needs met. Well, you know what? Because I didn't speak up and say my truth. Because I was afraid to. So, but not anymore. It's like, no, this is important. It's not about, I don't want to undercut myself. I don't want to rob myself of the feeling and the knowingness that, you know what, you may lose people and you may lose the relationship. You may lose the friends. But you know what? Guess what? All you got in yourself in the end is you.
Yeah, and you can maybe get some new friends that really like the you that you are.
Exactly
Yeah.
that, and they're gonna, again, this is really about vibrational too. But to be a good person, I don't know. I just think we know if we're being good. We know that. I mean, if you're doing something that is not of good. And I mean, I've known it. If I am doing something, I know it's like, this is like not really quite. And I've had those moments in my life, and I'll tell you what, it comes back to bite you in the butt. I've done that. I've gotten to the greed, and I thought, in that moment, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this for this reason. And sure enough, it came back a year later, and it got me. So and really, all my life, it's been about truth and integrity. And was I, lying when I was little? Of course, to get my way, especially as a teenager. Geez, I'd be telling my mom I was spending the night at my friend's house. I'd spend the night with my boyfriend's house, and I got caught in that too,
Whoops.
So really, yeah. So that's
Does that go back to that parenting don't want lies and don't want stealing, right?
Yes. Yeah, well, those are my parents. No, that's what I taught my kids. My parents didn't teach me
but
that.
somewhere along the line you figured that you didn't want either one of those in your life, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want.
They didn't work.
Yeah, and and I hope I answered the question, but I don't know if you have anything to say on that.
Did,
but
no.
I think what came up a lot of stuff came up for me when when I was talking about that, is this whole bit about lying. When you lie, you have to keep lying. You have to build upon it. I mean, I'm telling you, if you don't got records and a journal of this, and you're in trouble, because at one point you're going to forget, and you're going to be talking to somebody else, and you're going to go say something which is the truth, and they're going to go, wait a minute, that's not what you told me. You told me this. So again, to lie is not worth it, because to have to keep continuing this ball rolling it, because at some point it's going to catch up. It's really going to catch up to you. And it's just not worth it.
And I'm thinking it uses up a lot of your brain cells. They tell us that our brains, we're not using 80% of it already.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And if the 20% we're using is
Yes.
keeping stuff that doesn't work for us,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, how's life going to go?
Yeah.
That doesn't look like that's scientifically very valuable.
Yeah, not at all. And the two thing online, I want to say something too about that, is that, if you've lied, and this is coming from my own experience, with this happening, is that when you've lied, right, and then you put it out there, whatever the lie is, it's going to, and then you think about, I lied because of this, because then that person comes back and does something to you, and they lie to you, and you wonder, well, how could they go and lie to me? Now, really.
I don't know.
And so you start to think, okay, well, I lied to that person because I was either protecting myself, I was protecting them, and then they came back and lied to me. I mean, this is like a vicious cycle. It's like it's like a hamster in a wheel. It keeps going around and around and around, and he's just not going anywhere, except the same wheel is going round and round, not going anywhere.
He might be getting a little tired, though.
Well, exactly. You know what? You will get tired of lying eventually at some point in your life. And again, if we want to bring ourselves out of this world of dishonesty and deceit, we're going to have to start speaking our truth. And that's that cliche, the truth hurts. And it really does. Like I said, in last
the truth
week's show.
also sets us free, we hope.
It says it's free too, but that's like what I said in last week's show, is that there's going to be that moment when the truth hits you and you're going to be like, oh, that kind of hurt a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, wow, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I move on? And especially in relationships, whatever the relationship it is, I think when we really sit down and we say, this is what's up for me, and friends, or whatever it is, and really come from that place, it's going to change.
But I know there is a point that I think we all have to kind of ponder, because I've had people tell this to me several times, is, well, sometimes I don't like the truth.
Right.
Now what do? I mean, I've got the truth, but I don't like it.
Well, of course not.
Well, not always. I mean, you like it sometimes, but that is something that we all have to sort through, I'd say, in our own life, in our own fashion. The not liking it, I don't think has to be a problem, but to lie about it because you don't like it,
right,
is what you're saying causes the havoc.
Well, not only that, but I just didn't think in general lying. I could be saying to my friends, they're like, hey, you want to go out to the show this weekend? And I'm like, yeah, I really would like to go. And then really, I don't want to go,
Oh.
So, I mean, it's like, I think at some point you have to really, speak your truth and say, it sounds really good. You guys go have a great time. I'm just not really feeling up to it, But we do things because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. That's what this really all boils down to. We don't want to hurt people's feelings.
And we want to be liked. That's what I'm going to say to you.
Yeah.
I say to the audience,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I want to be liked.
Yes, that's why you need to like the show.
Exactly, I like the show. Exactly.
Yes, that's why.
It's because, oh my gosh, I mean, we not only want to be happy in our life, but we like the people that we care about to like us too. So, there's that part of it.
Well, I think, but then, I don't know. I mean, we want people to like us, but then, again, this goes back to that question about doing good. If we are, in fact, in our own truth and doing what's best for us and what's best for humanity, how can someone not like you?
Yeah.
Whether you speak your truth or not. But again, well, of course, if something is coming up for them, then that's like we talked about earlier, or I don't know, last week's show or today, I can't remember, but it's about stirring it up.
Yeah.
So it's stirring it up, and that's what this time in 2014 and on is about: stirring the pot, getting all that stuff that does not serve anybody anymore up and out, so we can move into this consciousness of happiness, peace, love, abundance, joy, all of the stuff that we came on this planet to do. And by God, we're going to do it.
I was going to say, and we know that's
Yes,
what we're about.
yes.
So if somebody doesn't know that,
Yes.
they can just ask us. We'll tell you.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. So, gosh.
But that is the key element is that where you're headed and stuff. And it's kind of like people who have, I know folks that have those radar devices in their car to keep the cops from knowing them. I'm saying if you don't speed, you don't have to worry about what that cop's up to.
Right.
So I'm not speeding because, oh my gosh, I'm being put upon, I can't do what I want to do.
Right.
I do it because it saves me the burden of having to be distressed, or I'm on my phone, am I texting, and a cop goes by, oh shoot, just that minute, how could he catch me in just that minute? I'm thinking that I may have had a part in that little
Of course, and that's what I was talking about when you were talking about being good people. Again, we know if we're speeding, it's like, oh, how could you have stopped me? Blah blah. We know, So there's no mysterious. It's not mysterious.
And I can say I've definitely not been stopped the amount of times I could have been stopped. Yeah. Not even whether I was trying to speed or not, but I was late or this or that. There were plenty of times I could have been stopped when I wasn't. So I'm just saying, I
You've
get the message,
probably got that
God.
karma bank up there that's like ching, ching, ching.
Thank
You got
you,
all
God,
filled
yeah.
up, and he's like going, okay, well, she's got so many built up there. That's another thing too, karma.
Oh, well.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that because next week's topic is going to be called getting in trouble. So we can talk about that too. But karma, what comes around, it goes around, and it's cause and effect. But we don't want to tell you any more because we want you to tune in next week for getting in trouble. But we want to thank you so much for tuning in today. We thank Wayne. We thank everybody.
Sherry, you too.
Sherry,
Thank you, Sherry.
for all the hard work that you do.
Yes.
And don't forget to like us because, like we said, we want
to be liked.
Yes, we want you to like us and subscribe because when you subscribe, you'll be notified of the shows. And Wayne's website, Major Video Incorporated. I forgot to say that, or Inc. Excuse me, Inc. I forgot to say that on last week's show. So MajorVideosInc.com. So you can, find out, just give him a call and, he's amazing. So we want to thank you again so much.
And speak up. That's what we're asking for. We're wanting you to speak up. So as you speak up and write to us at admin@Conscious Awareness TV and tell us your stories or a topic you want or something you heard or something you didn't like or something you want to know more on, speak up because that's just going to bring the energy. That's the more cosmic part of us being together and being one and being like on the same team and the same energy. And that's going to help us all in all of our lives. That energy helps us get where we're all going individually.
Yeah, and it's important because we would love to have your stories and your questions, especially your stories. If there's a story that you want to share, it really is. It brings everything to light. And it's like we had said in one of the other shows, you're not in this alone. We're all in this together.
Absolutely.
There's other, people have gone through the same thing. So by sharing your story, it really does make a difference in other people's lives. So we thank you again for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Our topic will be getting in trouble. Thank you.